The coded conversation. So last episode we received a message from one of our listeners via Facebook privately. It was from Daniel Patch. You remember that guy? What are you doing?
I do. I'm just trying to look at the camera more.
Oh, okay, yes.
Daniel Birch or
Peach,
Patchy.
something. Man, listen, we love you as
Thank you,
a
man.
listener. Thank you so much. So he asked a question about, kind of summing up the Metal Gear lore, like what it brings. Now, please feel free to message us at underthecardboardbox@gmail.com or on Facebook. We're always there. UCB at UCB Podcast. That's our Twitter handle. And we'll try to reply. We'll try to reply. If we don't reply there, we'll reply on the show. So stay tuned. So the lore of Metal Gear. So we've got 30 years on it now. 30 years of tactical espionage action, pretty much summed up with all these games. Some remakes, but they still sell. They still hold value, and people aren't getting tired of Metal Gear, at least not that I've heard of any.
Yeah, I was looking at MetalGearInformer.com, and I want to get this one right because you said that it still sells, so they put up an article, and right when you get to MetalGearInformer.com, they have Metal Gear turns 30. So I'm going to read a little bit of the article just to kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here. So this article was published July 13th, 2017. So they said, today marks a milestone for Metal Gear. Exactly 30 years ago, on July 13th, 1987, the first game in the series was released in Japan for MSX2 home computer, simply titled Metal Gear. This was the start of what would become one of the most treasured and influential video games franchises, with decades worth of sequels, prequels, and spin-offs, like you mentioned. To celebrate the occasion, here are some trivia and accomplishments. So, you were mentioning that it still sells to this day. So more than 51.3 million Metal Gear games have been sold. Metal Gear games are available on a wide range of different systems, including arcades, Game Boy Color, and mobile phones. We spoke a little bit about that this week. In 2015, Metal Gear Solid 1998 was voted best game of all time by PlayStation fans. Over the years, lots of different types of merchandise have been produced, including action figures, soundtracks, art books, but also jewelry, alarm clocks, and lunchboxes. There have been several adaptations to Metal Gear stories into different media, like audiobooks, novels, and digital graphic novels. Metal Gear games have received many different awards over the years, including a DICE Award, Golden Joystick, Famitsu Award, and PlayStation Award. So those are just a little bit of the accomplishments and little trivia that Metal Gear has accomplished. Metal Gear turning 30 means that, one, it's outlived many major titles that have come out in the last decade, right? Games that have come out way back in the day are not even relevant today. The reason why, for me, I go back to Metal Gear and the lore of it is, you've heard me say this before, but the story captivated me in a way where I didn't think video games can do. And you've heard me say this before, of course, but Metal Gear is like a movie that just keeps on giving, right? It has a unique story if you get it. I found it funny that Metal Gear needed an encyclopedia when it came out for the PlayStation 3. You remember that?
Yeah, I still have it.
So yeah, it's great. It's so good because it's so rich. I wish they would update it, like for PlayStation 4 to add like everything.
There's no Venom actually being the doppelganger in there.
Right,
or Big Boss, stuff like that.
And maybe put like something where you could put like spin-offs, like Metal Gear, how you were talking about Metal Gear Acid this week, and like the different clonings of him and stuff, the ones that are non-canon, right? But reasons I go back to it is one, it's fun to play, but also, as a kid, it made me think. it actually really made me think about how can I get through this? Video games are supposed to be like a fun medium, like to just kind of decompress and like not think, because you're thinking all day at work, right? Essentially, if you do work. So, but Metal
Support us on
Gear,
Patreon.
yes, Metal Gear actually made us, for me as a kid, and I'm pretty sure for you, like made you think like, okay, how the heck am I going to escape this jail cell? I remember playing Metal Gear Solid and like using the ketchup or using like whatever it is, that you had to use. Like there's different ways to get out of there, There could be, I think, 2 ways, right? Or 3. I can't remember.
3 ways.
3 ways to get out of there, right? And obviously in part 3, there's a few ways to get out, right? They kind of added to that. Like, this is kind of fun. Let's do that again. So, man, it's just so many different ways. And also like the different endings in part 1, where whether like one decision, whether you didn't you succumb to the torture, or you did, or you didn't, right? You resisted, right? And like it changed the outcome of the story at the end, like different things like that. Also the connections, like Drebin and like I'm sorry, Sigint being the DARPA chief, and like the many different connections that everyone has, like with Olga and like her daughter, and all these things like that you would have never thought. Obviously, here's the thing about it though. Let me give you a tidbit. Hideo Kojima didn't think of that when he made the game.
Very doubtful that he had it from 1987. This is all going to happen, and this is how it's going to break down.
I honestly think he grew into it, right?
Of course.
He was a very amateur game maker, obviously, because he was just starting out. And I think he found his niche. I think that he's heavily influenced by movies and like thrillers. And you could just see the stuff that he likes. He posts this all the time on Twitter. And he's the type of guy that he likes movies where you think. Space Odyssey, these are movies that are like his favorite movie, where he likes to think, and just so many things happening, where different connections and stuff. So you can see the influences in that. So I definitely play it for things like that. The lore of it is deep and rich. There's a lot of thin lines where it's like, maybe this has loose strings in it. There's many little loose strings in it, but anybody can make an argument for it, right? It's like, well, this is for this.
Hideo Kojima corrects that,
right? Yeah,
no matter what, like, right? Big Boss being alive like twice, like, oh look, that was a doppelganger of Big Boss,
yeah, because that was a loose end. Was a loose end,
right? Which would have, like, at the time made no sense, But then it's like
we were just like, whatever, like
you hear it now, and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I see. So that's how Big Boss survived.
Exactly. It's true. It's true. It's true.
Big Boss, Kojima doesn't let like anything, like, I have to cover this up somehow.
Somehow, some way. That's so true.
He is the father and the daughter of this person and this person, and then it just twists around.
Intertwines.
And somehow it became that Vamp knew about it, or something like that.
Something.
So I've noticed that Kojima's very about nostalgia and connections and Easter eggs and stuff like that, and
lots of Easter eggs.
Yes. When you've got to understand that in a time where Metal Gear came out, you remember how you spoke about the first Metal Gear and you said you were bored with it.
Yeah.
It didn't continue the same electricity that the other games did. Back in that time, games were side view and runner base and action base.
2D platformers.
Right. Think about Super Mario. It's like you're running through the stage, jumping on things. Never a dull moment. You never have a dull moment with Mario. It's not much thinking. It's really just snap decisions. Am I going this way?
I think only some Mario games had like puzzles in them.
Well, yeah, no, that's how it became after a while, right? But really, it's just quick thinking, get to it, rescue the princess for the 8,000th time, we've got Contra. We've got all these games that were like active shooters. Like, you have to keep moving. You have to keep doing it. Even Duck Hunt keeps you on your toes and stuff like that. But then you've got Metal Gear, which is you can take your time.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You don't have to fight. You don't have to get caught all the time. try to sneak in, when really people at the time were so used to, oh, I'm gonna face some action, like Gallica, the people are coming towards you, the ships and the monsters, they're coming to you. This time, you're sneaking in as this agent, which didn't really exist all that much. And I believe that from that stems, as the article says, so many other games. And so many of, that's where I believe that Metal Gear started this sneaking genre of games.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it's like, because it was so different, then these other games came out. Like, if you notice, a lot of, if you would realize, a lot of the games, when you would even try to sneak around and it wasn't like a sneaking game, they would know, the enemy knows you're there as soon as like you step into the room. Like, they can be turned around, and they know you're there automatically. You know what I mean? But Metal Gear was just like, you're in this base, people are walking around guarding it and stuff like that. And so it continued that way. And it also, brought in that crawling system. Like, you can crawl under ducts and hide, and enemies won't know that you're there. And if you get caught, you can hide. You don't have to fight. And then sometimes you have to fight. So it really, for a child, it would be like, this is boring.
Yeah.
But I would say, and you've said this in time before, Metal Gear was really ahead of its time. Like, it was. I feel like, and I've said this too, Metal Gear is like fine wine. It gets better at it as it ages. You appreciate it more as it ages. You might not get it at the time if you're at a younger age or whatever to appreciate it. It's like learning a lesson.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that with Metal Gear Solid 2, how not many fans appreciated that game.
They hated Raiden for what he is. And so when you think back, I mean, don't get me wrong. Me personally, I would have still preferred to play as Solid Snake. Because really Solid Snake is who you grew up with. Like, that's who you're playing as. Getting to know Raiden in that sense, it's like, it was a bit annoying at first, but then when you play it and you play it and you play it and you really like, you know what? This is actually pretty good storytelling. This is really good character development. Like, oh, I see what Snake was trying to do there. Like when you saw Pliskin, you're like, that's Snake. That's not Pliskin.
What's going on? This. But also there was that type of confusion as well, because remember, this is the first time we've ever seen him like a rendered face of Snake. Right. It's like a render. I remember reading an article as to people being confused as to Pliskin. Like, all those years back in Metal Gear 1, did he have blonde hair? Were the graphics so bad that Snake had blonde hair and stuff? And it's like, no, there's no way, because this and this. But it's the first time we see Snake in a rendered face. Like, he has a nose, eyes. You could tell he has green eyes. He doesn't talk
like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't. Right. Like that.
Blue eyes.
Blue eyes. Sorry. Yeah, that's Big Boss. You could tell he has blue eyes. And everything. And it's like,
Big Boss also had blue.
No.
Yes. I don't like those blue eyes of his.
I thought he said green.
When Vogan was going to torture him?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Can't remember.
I mean, Solid Snake did look like he, in part 2, I can say that. Solid Snake looked like he had green eyes. But if you play part 4, he has blue eyes.
Yeah, so which has better graphics.
Yes. So whatever they were looking for there. But yeah, man, it's just the lore of Metal Gear is really just, you're in the shoes of this spy that has a complicated story. And it's like, I'm looking at Twin Snakes right now and how awesome it was to play that in these graphics with these, for lack of a better term, better AI with the soldiers.
Yeah.
To be able to kind of mess with these soldiers in that way, sneak around the soldiers in that way, the higher the difficulty, the harder it was to kind of like, take them out and stuff, really making you think. And then on top of that, it's like a story where it's just like taking you for a ride. It's not so plain and simple.
Gonna take you for a good ride.
Yes, thank you, Heido. That album is coming soon. But we're rambling. So we can't do that anymore. Nope. This is for you, Jen Snake. But yeah, in terms of the lore, man, and it's like, and it gets better every time. Like, I don't think there's a Metal Gear game where I was like, I played part 1 and it's like part 2 is like, they really, really went down. maybe I'll like part 1 better than part 2 in terms of story, but in terms of what it's trying to bring, Hideo Kojima always built it up. And it's like, even when it was part 3 and it was like, it was before the time, it like, even that made sense. You would think like, oh, well, because we didn't know it was Big Boss at first, or
we didn't know
naked stuff. So it's like, I remember thinking Snake is younger in this one. This is when Snake first started. Remember when we had that conversation?
I remember, a long time ago.
And so it was like, why is
then that article came out?
Yeah, why is his CQC better than whatever he does now? Although I have to call you on this, Kojima. The explanation you gave for Snake's CQC in part 4 versus the other ones was not good. Do you remember what the
I don't remember so much. No.
Okay, so the reason he never used CQC was in respect for Big Boss. And now
that makes no sense.
Like, I was just like, come on. Like,
you could do a little better than that.
You could have done a little better. It's been 10 years. Maybe you decided to study it a little more or whatever, but we'll let it go. We're going to let it slide. But I'm telling you right now, if you're listening, Kojima, which you probably aren't, but if you are, support us on Patreon. but you see what I'm saying? Like, and so you got hooked on Snake's story. You get hooked to him. Like, it's a tragic. What I feel like Kojima adds is real character development to Snake. And it's like, you grow attached to him, even though he is this guy. Like, you realize he's a real person. And he has a lot of hurt. I remember in part 1 when Meryl would talk to him and she would be like, is there anyone in your life? And his response was, I've never been interested in other people's lives. It just gets complicated. Or Big Boss's story when Eva asked him, he was like, do you love the boss? And he was like, no, nothing like that. It's like, do you hate her? Does it have to be one or the other, love or hate? Like, he's complicated.
He's complicated, yeah.
And so it's like, it's that kind of character that draws us back to it. It's like, I want to understand you, Snake, please. Talk to me, kind of a thing. Like at the end of part 1, he got with Meryl. Then by part 2, you realize they're not together anymore. So it's like,
something must happen.
Something's happening here.
We should get like the Sims version of what happened during that time.
Well, yeah, I mean, she explains it in part 4. He's like, you just left the unit, like you just left, and that just shows to Snake's like loner side,
and also shows that whatever was holding them together was the unit, whatever it was.
And she wanted, well, I mean, for her it was more, for Meryl was more, but I think that'll be content for another episode. Yeah. But really, if we can,
does love really bloom on the battlefield, man?
If we make it through this, I'll tell you.
Nice. That's good, man. That's
Thanks,
good.
Man. Thanks, man.
That's good.
But the lore of Metal Gear is simply, it stood out above the rest.
Yeah.
Like, I've played Splinter Cell.
Good games too.
Really, really good games, which I believe Splinter Cell has evolved greatly in terms of its gameplay, but that's neither here nor there.
No, of course. And I think they've adapted to something more, because yes, they were trying to be like Metal Gear or a competition to Metal Gear, but they became something different. It became
its own entity. It became its own, like,
in the newer generations.
Right. I played Blacklist. I'm thinking of playing Blacklist again just because it was that awesome.
Yeah.
But I think it all stems from Metal Gear.
Of course. I mean, certain parts of Assassin's Creed. I mean, come on.
Even when they had that collab, the collaboration, you were able to do freaking in Peace Walker, you were able to do leaps of faith into Haystack.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And grab soldiers and beat them up in the haystack.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And then in part 4, what did they have? They had an Assassin's Creed attire for Snake. Did. Snake being the ultimate assassin, kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was kind of a punch towards Assassin's Creed. It's like, hey, look, this is the ultimate assassin right here.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, if you want to look
just
at
friendly
that,
competition.
I'm sure, but of course they had needed to get that permission to kind of.
I don't think not for that. I don't think so.
Suit?
Because it wasn't exactly.
No, it was.
Oh, yes, you're right. An
Altair,
the Altair, yeah.
inch for inch.
But I was talking about the beginning of it. You know how he had like kind of like the drape over the beginning of
that's
the game.
because he was like covert op. Like, he was part of the militia. But I'm sure Ubisoft and Konami were in cahoots when they did all that.
For the Altair costume, yes.
I think it was just in recognition of like, we think you're a really good game, but you know,
what was it that they did in part 3? They had Metal Gear Solid 1. Metal Gear Online 1. Sorry. They had the girls in there. What were they from? Rising Sun or something?
The wrestling game?
Some Japanese
but that was also
game.
from Konami.
Yeah,
That game was
I just can't remember that game. I can't remember it.
Blue Rose. I was gonna say Guns N' Roses, but that's not it.
That's
either.
a band.
I know that's a band, bro.
Good band.
Yeah, but we're
rambling, man. We're rambling. We have to ramble.
Come on,
guys.
Get it together. Anyway, if you pick up this game, know that you're in for a massive story that you will want to see till the end. Now, of course, it might not be for everyone. If your thing is a constant action, if you're not about sneaking around and or just whatever the case may be, if you're not much of a story guy, then yeah, I could see how you
play part 5.
There you go. But I can see how you can find this game kind of boring. But if you are into story and depth and character development and, you know, just really having a good time, because the thing is that what I love about Metal Gear is that I think another bit of the lore is that it doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah, that's very good.
There are so many things in that game that you're like,
straight silly.
Come on.
Straight silly.
Like, that would never happen in real life. Like in Twin Snakes, like if they do like a quote, the question mark or the quotation mark or anything like that,
and
if you shoot it, they'll be like, or have a brain fart,
or riding a missile as Snake did,
tapping the missile and then doing a flip.
That's
so
insane.
Yeah. Do not come into this game with realistic expectations at all. But I think that's really what people enjoyed, is that the game wasn't afraid to make fun of itself. It wasn't afraid to be funny. It wasn't afraid to be unrealistic, which is more of the Splinter Cell kind of a thing. Splinter Cell thrived in trying to be more
serious.
There's even a realistic setting.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
for the difficulty, you know, where in Metal Gear, there's the boss extreme, which is the hardest difficulty. Where the enemies are a little more sensitive to sight and to sound and stuff like that, but still you're having a good time. You know what I mean? But yeah, guys, that's the lore of Metal Gear. The lore of Metal Gear is simply, it doesn't pretend to be what it's not. It is its own thing. And it draws you in with its characters. Yeah. You know? You said in the episodes prior, when you saw Big Boss again at the end of part 4, like that brought a tear to your eye, because, and I was watching it recently, the ending again. I was watching it in Japanese, the Japanese dubbing, and I was like, I can see how this is emotional. This is like, heart wrenching.
Especially coming from playing part 3. I think Hideo Kojima did it so perfectly that right after we played part 3, like this comes out, you know, and it's like, because you were kind of wondering, you know, you see Big Boss, as obviously these are spoilers, but you see Big Boss burn, and you know, you're just like, oh man, like, damn, we just played as him and he's dead, and like
this is Big Boss right now.
This is Big Boss. Like, he looks like he doesn't have a limb, and he's just like,
right.
And so seeing him at the ending, like, when it said Big Boss in the credits, and it's like, wait, Big Boss wasn't in this game. Like, he didn't have a voice.
I saw him die.
Yeah, and so it's like, wait, what? And then you see this scene. It's just it just speaks to the amount of emotion that it was, and the perfect combination of Snake and Big Boss and father and son, and the complicated relationship they had over the years.
Right.
You know, I think it kind of skewed a little bit. Part 5 kind of skewed that emotion a little more, just because I didn't really like the direction it was going in, obviously. And obviously Hideo Kojima didn't think he was going to make part 5, but I didn't really necessarily like and I think I've said this in previous episodes, that at first I thought, Big Boss, my favorite character and everything. And I think I ended up with saying that Solid Snake is my favorite character for X amount of reasons. But the lore behind it is that a game you would have never thought like a game would make you emotional like a movie or a TV show can do, but it does, and going back to Part 4 has a lot. Part 4, if you didn't know, it's a fan service to Metal Gear Solid fans. I say Part 4 is the only game you probably cannot play if you haven't really played Metal Gear.
Play and understand. Play and
understand,
really
right? It's fun, of course, it's fun, but you won't understand it. You
won't be emotionally attached to it.
And I will know that because I was playing with my friend Brian at the time, like I said, and he wasn't as emotionally invested in it when we went back to Shadow Moses.
Yeah.
Brought
back all of that.
What a phenomenal scene to bring that back.
The music and everything
was just perfect, And so like going back to that, the base where you start, you get off the elevator and you're right there, and then you hear the music. It's like, wow. Like I'm back
and then
here.
The flashbacks are coming, and only a real Metal Gear fan would know this.
Yeah, my friend Brian was confused. He was like,
"Oh, why is he saying? Yeah, why is he saying this?" Or the dream when he would have the dream before they got there.
Yep,
like that dream again. You know.
Yeah.
So when you got to play that part with all the pixels and everything like that, so Metal Gear is a game that continues to deliver to fans, and I think because of that, we're able to have more. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, if you're going to pick up this game, get ready for a ride. Because Metal Gear is just the gift that keeps on giving. And I think you have said this, but you want to play Part 4 again. And so do I.
Yeah.
Because it just brought back a lot of memories.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and we'll talk about it at the end, but yeah, it's great. Just seeing, we're obviously playing Part 4 now, and we'll speak about it at the end. So stay at the end of the show, so you can hear about it. But just seeing that menu screen, and when you get into Metal Gear Solid 4, you see him in that scene. That's the scene that we're talking about,
the graveyard. Yeah.
And Brian actually had a great point because that game ended that time, and I just remembered this. And he said, "Wait, what happened to that scene in the beginning? Like, does not happen? Was that from a different game?" And I'm like, well, actually, I don't know. And the credits were just rolling, and then boom, that happened. So what a masterful way to do it. And I think, we all say Hideo Kojima is a mastermind and everything and stuff. Just know there was a lot of people helping him with this game. He wasn't the only one. But
sure,
yes,
he came up with ideas with them too.
But yes, Hideo Kojima was the forefront of the storytelling and everything. And I think it just proves that why this game has so many like fans and spin-offs and attractions. Like, if you ask any game developer right now if they've ever got inspired by a game or any medium, they will say Metal Gear Solid. Why? Because it introduced them to a lot of things that they probably didn't think they can get, And honestly, speaking, and not just because I'm a fan or anything like that, but I play a lot of games. But not much can captivate me as Metal Gear did. Unfortunately, 5 didn't as much. But man, just the stories and thinking of all the times that I've played Metal Gear back in the day, and just thinking about, wow, man, like I've played this part. So like Part 3, I've played so many times. I can't even remember how many times I've played Part 3, and I still enjoy it. Like, I still go through it, and it's like, I know there's a guard there. I know I'm going to shoot him in the head and keep going. And like, it's just fun. It's just fun. It just has great replayability. First of all, I think any of the games, any Metal Gear game that came out has excellent replayability. All the Solids have excellent ones. I think you could just go in and just play it again, get new things and stuff. So it just speaks on the value that it has and the excitement that fans have for it. Like, even to this day, 30 years later, what people are going through. I mean, man, the eBay community and the buyer community for Metal Gear, like, it's high up there. They have a list on eBay where you can see like the highest games in that sell for like the most or sell like for the highest price are always like Super Mario.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Very good points. So please send us an email at underthecardboardbox@gmail.com. And you guys, let us know, what is it that captivated you about Metal Gear? Please follow us at U.C.B.P podcast, and let us know if you're fans of Metal Gear there. We'd love to have you. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Just know that we have, I don't know if you noticed it with episode 41, but we've decided just to put up the codec conversation, since you can only sustain just a little bit of us. We won't bother you with the other stuff. But yeah, man. Good points, Heidel.
Yeah. Like Arnaldo said, email us at underthecardboardbox@gmail.com so we could read your experience with Metal Gear in the last 30 years. Tell us your memories and your interactions with Metal Gear. And now, the trivia.
I've got nothing for trivia. Probably gonna put something.